Quite a week. The media throwing out all sorts of allegations about the firing of James Comey. First, they said the FBI director was canned after he wanted more resources for the Russia probe. But the acting FBI director said the following.
When we need resources, we make those requests here. So I'm not aware of that request, and it's not consistent with my understanding of how we request additional resources. I strongly believe that the Russia investigation is adequately resourced.
Well, then the front pages were all about Assistant Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, how he threatened to resign, they said, over how the firing was being portrayed. But Rosenstein himself told a reporter he was not quitting and never threatened to quit. So what is going on? Joining us now to discuss it is Steve Forbes, along with Amy Holmes, Emily Jashinsky, Wendy Osefo, and Lee Carter. Steve, I want to go to you first because as the head of a media company, editorial director at times, this must drive you nuts. I mean, the fact that what is leading the narrative in the media is often dead wrong, or at least it has been over the past week.
Yeah, and it's not helped by the White House not having a consistent storyline themselves, David. But the media is out to get Donald Trump. They're trying to make this the equivalent of Watergate, which it isn't. And so they're going to be probes all over the place. And I think they just have to resign to the fact they're going to hear the word Russia 1,000 times a day for the next 8 years.
But Amy Holmes, the idea that these front page stories, which are meant to move the story forward, actually move the story backwards because very often they're wrong and have to be corrected. If they're honest enough to correct it, very often they don't do that.
David, that's exactly right. But do you notice that they're always wrong in one direction, which is to the disadvantage of the president? They never have to correct it in the other way. And I actually brought in 2 Time magazine covers that came out within a week of each other. And this is media bias in photos. This is Chuck Schumer, the Democratic minority leader of the Senate, airbrushed, glowing, thoughtful, serene. This is Steve Bannon on the same cover. They show warts and all, black background, looking grimacing into the camera. Again, a week apart. This is media bias in pictures, how the media is trying to manipulate your perception of events.
Wendy, it's hard not to disagree with that, isn't it?
Well, a little bit, but in political communication, you're only as good as your credibility. And right now, the media not only has a problem, but the Trump administration has a problem as well. We can see where Sarah Huckabee Sanders came out on Wednesday saying that Comey had lost the confidence of the rank and file, when in less than 24 hours, you have acting director McCabe come out and say, actually, not only has Comey not lost the confidence of the rank and file, he actually has broad support from the FBI. So as well as the media, you also see the Trump administration who has credibility issues.
Steve, what do you think about that?
No, I think the media has a credibility problem, David, on this because clearly their biases are out there. And in terms of what happened with the Assistant Attorney General, what happened in terms of the stories that came out of the White House, I think the White House did not handle the thing well. But the fact of the matter is they're trying to latch on to anything possible to discredit the president. Yeah. And I think people realize that. So if the White House just pulls back, this story's going to die on its own.
Emily, I don't think they're going to pull back. I don't think that either the Trump tweeting is going to pull back or that the media is going to pull back at all. And the Congress, or at least the Democrats in Congress, seem to be fueled by all this media stuff, whether it's right or wrong.
Oh, absolutely. I would not expect the media to pull back at all right now. In fact, I think what's going on is they're having this field day. They feel like it's Watergate, so they're getting really excited. I think they're getting overexcited. What we have is a recipe for, we've got these anonymously sourced stories, and reporters love doing the anonymously sourced stories. And on top of that, we have a sloppy communications team in the White House. That's not good. That's a recipe for confusion. Americans need to start taking the mainstream media's reporting with a grain of salt, taking the word from the White House with a grain of salt. We need to start getting some clear information on both ends. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Lee Carter, you're a pollster. How is all this affecting the president?
This has not been a good week for the president. And I was talking about this yesterday. I got all kinds of tweets from his supporters saying, how can you say that? It has not been a good week. He has not handled this very well. On Monday morning, we were having a conversation about health care. We're having a conversation about tax reform. Aetna dropped out of the Obamacare this week. This should be a huge victory week for the president and the Republicans. And instead, what are we talking about? Comey, Russia, Spicer hiding in the bushes, all of these things that are just not helping move the agenda forward. This wasn't handled well. And you cannot say it's because it's impossible to get all of your people on the same page with talking points. That's communications 101. They should all be on the same page, communicating the same message, and he needs to get a new FBI director in ASAP so that we can move forward and start talking about the issues that matter most to the American people.
I think more important than anything else right now, Steve Forbes, and something that could make all these problems disappear would be to get tax cuts in that would get the economy growing again, right?
Well, that's where the White House has to learn they have to dominate the agenda in a positive way and go forward with get a tax proposal out there, make it as radical and bold as possible, move it with the House and with the Senate, the heck with budget scoring, and get that big tax cut being the discussion instead of all this other stuff that has nothing to do with getting this economy really revved up again.
Well, Amy Holmes, are the Republicans going to go ahead with a radical tax reduction? Because some of them are kind of nervous about that.
They are nervous about it, but they're also trying to work together to move forward on that. And again, the president, he proposes, the Congress disposes, and that's their job, is to legislate. But I'd like to get back to the media bias just one last time, which is, I think a lot of the outrage was that the media behaved as if they weren't consulted in the president's decision. I read a lot of criticism of, he should have done it this way, not that way.
Wendy, what do you think?
Well, I think that the Trump administration needs to understand that political capital is not regenerative. This is not X-Men, and Trump is not Wolverine. So he cannot buy up all of his capital, and the American people need him to be honest, and we need honesty from the media as well.
Emily, 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think the big thing is we've got one of the main stories is the palace intrigue, the personnel. That's just going to be gossip no matter what. So we need to move past that into substance policy, tax reform.
Folks, thank you so much. That's it from the Cost of Freedom from our nation's